A warm welcome this evening, the 12th of May 2021, this Wednesday, when Uganda gets a new president and there is a new government starting today at about 11, when the oath of president and the a vow to respect the constitution was again taken by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni at Kololo ceremonial grounds this morning. And that, especially the issues that formed the discussion at Kololo, or the presentation rather, and the issues around what next for the next 5 years. So we are going to be taking a look into the next 5 years of the NRM leading this country, 2021-2026. To join me in discussing all that, we have Mr. RAMATHAN GGOOBI, policy analyst, economist, and he teaches economics at Makerere University Business School. He is here. RAMATHAN, you're most welcome back.
Thank you, Charles.
And I will shortly tell you why I'm starting with you. With RAMATHAN, we have the Honorable Professor EPHRAHIM KAMUNTU. He is Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. You're most welcome to the show, Honorable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you. I really want to appreciate that you could come because you have been busy the last 3 days and you were welcoming guests, dignitaries reaching from out of Uganda, and for you to have accepted to come to the show this time, I really appreciate.
Thank you.
Next to Professor is Andrew Muenda, senior journalist, veteran if you like, and is managing editor at the Independent News magazine. Today is dressed like the leader of the Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Andrew, you're most welcome to the show.
You are a very bad grandson. You forget to mention that I'm also the old man of the clan. I don't know why.
There is a really old man next to you, so you don't deserve it.
This is my son, you are my grandson. So I'm going to call a council of elders and we may ask the spirits of our ancestors to curse you for bad manners.
When you survive COVID, you are no longer curseable. Next to Andrew is Council Sarah BIREETE. She is Executive Director at the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good. And finally, just next to me on the left is Honorable ABDU KATUNTU. And KATUNTU is MP for BUGWERI County in BUGWERI District. He is outgoing MP and incoming MP. He is also, like President Museveni, KATUNTU is also outgoing and incoming. He is handing over to himself.
And a woman MP.
No.
I am not a woman MP. I am acting woman MP.
Honorable KATUNTU, thank you for coming back to the show.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good. The reason why I started with RAMATHAN GGOOBI, actually, the manifesto that is going to be implemented is a manifesto that GGOOBI knows in and out of the NRM. Of course, that manifesto, the crafting of it was led by Professor EPHRAHIM KAMUNTU. And I want to start with what we had the president promising, what he delivered at Kololo. And I want to start with GGOOBI. In just one and a half minutes to set us off, the president made a speech. He talked about regional integration, free market, democracy. He talked about African unity. Did that speech capture the mood that you saw prepared in the manifesto? What is going to be the priority, the main 3 or 4 priorities of the current government starting today or tomorrow?
Thank you. I don't know why you can start with the back bench when my chairman is on the panel, but I will take the honors. First, the president was at the center of the preparation of that manifesto, actually. We interacted with him severally, and I'm glad that in that speech that he gave today, he captured the salient features of the manifesto. Number one, this manifesto of the NRM for these 5 years is centered around socio-economic transformation. And in that, the issue of job and wealth creation was at the center of it. And today, the president approached the national issues which we want to address in the manifesto from a Pan-African kind of point of view. In his wisdom, he said that most of the common challenges that Africa is facing, because when you see most of those heads of state were there, their countries and ours have almost similar challenges when it comes to what people think are the critical issues. When you talk about the economies of Africa, when you talk about political fragmentation, when you talk about the challenges of, you know, tribalism and ethnicity and all those issues, they are issues which, once we approach them from a Pan-African kind of point of view, you can almost deal with all of them, because they usually, the president wants to approach issues from, and this is what he told us when we were meeting as a committee to read the manifesto, that he wants us to diagnose the diseases, not the symptoms. And in today's speech, he was actually alluding to the real disease which is afflicting Africa, from us dealing with the symptoms instead of dealing with the disease. The disease is we are a fragmented society, and we need to stop thinking in tribes, thinking in our homes, thinking in ourselves, and approach our problems as common problems of Africa. For example, when you look at now where Uganda is, the issue of markets, he has emphasized it, that now some people in Uganda have woken up through these wealth creation initiatives, and Uganda now is a land of surpluses. People have surplus sugar, surplus maize, surplus beans, surplus this and that, which they want to sell. But they are saying we don't have a market. And you can't sell the same things to yourselves when you're producing them. You need others. So he approached it from that angle, and also he brought the aspect of democracy. And he said, it's time Africa came up and actually solve its own challenges instead of receiving lectures from others, because he said that the NRM, which he has led since his youthful days, was the first one to bring practical solutions to the challenge of democracy in Uganda by integrating all groups.
We are going to be discussing those issues in depth. Certainly it is the only topic that we have on our table this evening. Professor, you led the team which had, among others, your son here, GGOOBI. The president referred to all those issues, but I want you to start taking us into the doing, the implementation, because from the written speech, I would tell it was a good speech, speaking to the real issues that, if addressed, can really transform a society. But most times, our problem is the lack of implementation. Do you believe that this time, the next 5 years, you are going to implement this? What makes it different from the, pessimists who have been saying Ugandans do good policy on paper, but they don't implement?
Thank you very much indeed. If you permit me, I can ease myself.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I want to thank you very much indeed for inviting me. Yes, I had a bit of a struggle to get here from Entebbe Airport. We was seeing off the delegations that had attended the inauguration of the president. I'm also very grateful that you invited me to join this distinguished panelists, and I'm pleased to be part of them. It is true, I was the chairman of a Manifesto committee, a committee that constituted or composed of very eminent persons, including RAMATHAN. And I'm pleased he's here. Let me begin from the speech of the president today and what it means in terms of implementing the manifesto. The president today was, you could see the force with which he delivered his speech. He was very combative. He gave a sense of urgency in what has been doing. He repeated the 4 principles or the core principles of NRM. He repeated the need for patriotism, the love of your country. Uganda must be one. Looking at Uganda through ethnic lenses, yeah, undermines the very essence of being a state. He also emphasized Pan-Africanism. And this he brought, he related it, the need for a market, and showed that these surpluses which he quoted from maize to milk to sugar underscores the importance of a regional market, economic integration. Actually, it implies, in a way it implies implementation. Things cannot be the same as before. Right now, you are moved from scarcity to surplus. You must look for the market. So if regional integration didn't make meaning before because you didn't have commodity to sell, this time it becomes real when you think about all these farmers that had maize and sugar and they have nowhere to take it except to look for regional market. Now, where Ngobi made a point is, it is also a principle, a third principle of NRM, yeah, socio-economic transformation. Yes, in the manifesto, we are doing things differently. We have proposed something that has not been tried before. That is a parish development model. Let me emphasize, this parish model is a scientific approach based on empirical visiting household per household, determining the family size, determining the land size, testing the soil, knowing which crop or which product can be produced on the land that you have. Also, if it requires the fertilizer, to provide fertilizers. If it is water, provide water. If it requires finance, to use circles. If it requires post-harvest managing, it also does so. And if it means cottage industry, it is established. If it means looking for a market, it is done. So economic transformation, which is one of the principles, core principles of NRM, this time is being addressed in practical terms. So I'm saying the implementation question you're raising arises from this point. And finally, he made a point. These people who lecture to us about democracy, surely when you have, I think it was 190, no, there are so many elective positions in our democracy. And if he had added LC1, there are so many participatory democracy in Uganda more than anywhere else. In fact, he questioned, where else in the world do you have this situation? Now, given that scenario, Chairman, given that scenario, the issue of implementation has always been a challenge. We make good policies, but implementation capacity is very difficult. Ngobi, Ramadan, you will bear me out on this one, because we had a very long discussion with the president about implementation plan for the manifesto. Yes, we did long discussion, implementation plan for the manifesto. This has not been done before, but this time it is being done.
Okay.
So I'm confident, I'm optimistic that there is going to be a distinct difference between what has been in the past and what is envisaged. Maybe if I get a moment, you could see the president addresses 3 audiences. You had a domestic audience, which he addressed in those contexts.
Then the regional.
Then regional.
Then the international.
Then international.
Yeah.
This was very, very clear. So on the regional basis, the issue of political and economic integration is not a matter of choice. Yeah? No, it's a matter of survival. And once that element is understood, then the issue of urgency for regional integration becomes very obvious. And he brought examples. Internationally, these lecturers, I'm sure they listen.
Yes.
Yes, they listened. These lecturers who lecture to us about democracy, about human rights, about question their own credentials to lecture to us. I'm sure it was quite pointed.
Okay, I need to bring in your colleagues here, and then we will be touching on all those issues. Andrew, pick it from there. Regional was really the issue of the market. The democracy was, that's when the president got angry. You could see it, and him mentioning the word even, expletives, like 3-4 times I counted. And you could see he had gotten angry. Do you think that this was a speech good enough for a swearing in, for an inauguration, starting a new term? And do you think the implementation issue is going to be realized this time?
Okay, those are 2 questions. Let me begin with the first. This was not really an inauguration speech. It was a lecture. I don't think President Yoweri Museveni knows how to give a speech. He normally gives lectures. And it's a very, very deep lecture. That is one. Whether he can implement what he says, I don't think so. First of all, the government of President Yoweri Museveni has entered a period of inertia. There is so much lethargy, fatigue in it, that it is incapable. Even he, as an individual, he has grown old, and he no longer have the energy and zest that he had in 1986. So if it took him 1 day to make a decision in 86, it took him 1 week to make it in 96, 1 month to do it in 2006, 1 year to make it in 2016, it will take him forever to make it in 2021.
No.
Seriously, I think that you can even look at the oil industry. The delays, because a lot of decisions have to be approved by him. Let me give you an example of stalled projects in Uganda which could already have been implemented. You have SGR.
Yeah.
You have the Jinja-Kampala Expressway. You have this issue of Ayago. You have oil. I mean, the pipeline, the production facilities, every single thing has delayed because negotiating one item normally takes a minimum of about 2 to 3 years. In fact, the World Bank did a study and found that the average time it takes from the conception of a project to the completion, like a road, is 7 years. And in oil, it will take about 20. But let me come to the issue that I think is, I think the president's excessive focus on regional integration as the only vehicle through which Uganda can become prosperous is mistaken. There are many countries. Denmark has a population of 5 million, Norway about 8, Sweden about 12. I mean, they are very, very rich countries with high per capita incomes. Whether you look at Qatar, United Arab Emirates, it is not true that Latin America is poor as it is because of its small population. Britain came to dominate the world. It controlled 24% of the world surface with 20% of the world population. They were only 40 million. So I think you see, if you get 20 poor economies and integrate them, you will still have an integration of 20 poor economies anyway. Remember, there was a time, I think was it in 1990, the purchasing power of Belgium alone was larger than the purchasing power of the whole of Africa combined. So the president, you will find it in the World Bank report of 1989, the president tends to mistake a market for the number of people. A market is about purchasing power. The purchasing power of the individuals in that economy. You have a small country like Luxembourg with 600,000 people, it can have a higher purchasing power than Uganda with 46 million. So I don't think that regional integration is the biggest.
Uganda is 44 million. Is
the biggest threat to our economic growth and transformation. In any case, as he says in his speech or lecture, since 1986, Uganda has grown at an annual average rate of about 6.2%. The World Bank number I have here is 6.7% over a period of 35 years. Let me tell you, that's a very good number. Many people underestimate the power of that number. You see, economic development is economic growth over a long period of time. People say there is a difference between growth and development. It's not. Development is growth over a very long period of time. Why? You can only sustain long-term growth through technological change. Therefore, and you can only sustain long-term growth through increasing output per person, output per unit factor input. So you look at factors of production, land, labor, whatever technology you are using, you must produce more using smaller quantities. So if you increase labor productivity, the productivity of capital over the long period, let's say 50 years, 100 years, you will become a developed country. That's what it means. Now, development really is a marathon. There are many countries that are I was just looking at the IMF numbers, which I wrote to them and they sent me. If you look at Uganda over the last 5 years, it is the 33rd fastest growing economy in the world. If you say the last 10 years, it is the 23rd fastest growing economy in the world. If you say the last 15 years, it's about the number 18. But if you look at the last 35 years, Uganda has been the 11th fastest growing economy in the world, 4th fastest in Africa. All right? Why does Uganda perform like that? I even tried to see when they say Uganda is perform better. 86 to 91, 86 to 90, 91 to 96, those 5-year cycles. There is not a single small period when Uganda's economic growth was among the top 20 in the world. What has Uganda achieved that I think is phenomenal for purposes of growth is that it has sustained impressive rates of growth over the long term. Now, this is what happens to growth in the short term. Many countries can afford a sprint. A country can come and grow at 8, 9, 10% per year for 5 years, then it enters slow, stagnant, or even negative growth. You see, the inability of countries to sustain growth over a long period of time, which is generations, is what stops them from developing. What is impressive about Uganda's record is that over 35 years when Museveni has been president, it has sustained an annual average rate of growth of about 6.72%, which is among the best in the world. The Nobel laureate in economics called Michael Spence wrote a book called The Next Convergence, and in it, he studied world economies from 1950 to 2005 and found that if you took a block of 30 years, there are only 13 countries in the whole of that period of 55 years. Only 13 countries had grown at an annual average rate of 7% plus over a period of 35 years. Why is 7% important number? Because there is what we call the rule of 72. That rule says that if anything under measurement grows at an annual average rate of 7% per year, an annual average rate of 7%, it will double every 10 years. And if it grows at, say, 3.5, it will double every 20 years. If it grows at 14%, it will double every 5 years. So Uganda is close to that threshold of 7.
But?
So if you ask me, therefore, even without integration, Uganda has been growing impressively well. What are the problems that Uganda is facing? Because the biggest challenge of Uganda is structural transformation. Maybe for your listeners, I should define what structural transformation is.
Please.
It has a
don't also make it a lecture like Museveni is doing.
Yes, I will
look
at two things because others are political and administrative, but the two economic ones are the transition of most people's livelihood from being dependent on agriculture to being dependent on industry and services. It is also occasioned by another thing, the shift of people from rural to urban. Rural where agriculture is, urban where industry and services are largely located. We have not achieved that. In 1990, 70% of Ugandans were depending on agriculture. Now, in 2014, it was something like 69. There has been insignificant change. Why? I think that if I was to write President Yoweri Museveni's speech, one of the things he needs to look at is, okay, he does mention it, that you need to invest heavily in manufacturing so that you can draw excess labor out of agriculture into manufacturing. But for me, I have a bigger problem. You see, Uganda's economy is disproportionately controlled by foreign direct investment. Look at your banks, our banks. Look at telecommunications. Look at our insurance. Look at even a lot of manufacturing. It is owned by foreigners. What does that mean? Remember, under our policy, they have freedom to repatriate 100% of their profits. They indulge in transfer pricing. Transfer pricing is where a company like MTN, they have an offshore company in Mauritius, right? They want to buy telecommunications equipment worth 12 million. Instead of buying it directly from Sweden or China, they order it through their subsidiary or their offshore company in Mauritius, which purchases it at 12 million, sells it to them at 40. So all of a sudden they have inflated the cost by 28. So instead, now that 28 becomes a cost which cannot be taxed. So once you have foreign companies dominating your economy, profit repatriation, transfer pricing, and other forms of smuggling money out of your country, make it difficult for you to retain the surplus necessary for you to invest and produce more. The second element with foreign...
You need to conclude on it.
Okay. The other weakness of the Ugandan economy, because it is foreign dominated, is that Ugandans become servants or workers for others. And if you look at our country, really, it is difficult to produce a sizable, large, and high purchasing power middle class when all you have hotels are owned by foreigners, managed by foreigners, and your citizens are only cleaners and waiters in the hotels. Okay. They are taking all small jobs. So I think that the government of Uganda needs to think of issues of local content when it comes to oil. Let me finish like this. There is a problem also with Ugandan policy when it comes to foreign firms. When a foreign company comes here, we give them what we call tax holidays or tax rebates, or we give them tax exemptions. What is the risk of these tax exemptions? Remember that when you're a foreign company, you come to work in Uganda, you use roads built at taxpayer expense, right? Yeah. You don't pay. You enjoy security paid for by the taxpayer. You employ labor educated by the taxpayer, educated by the taxpayer, but also goes to hospitals, which are funded by the taxpayer. So there are so many things we as Ugandans have already given, which you are enjoying for free, you as a foreign company. If you do not pay your fair share of taxes, because you have been given exemptions, because you're involved in transfer pricing, other methods of tax evasion and tax avoidance, then it means that you may realize the net return of your investment could be negative. If you look at what the benefits you bring and the costs, the benefits you take may be more than the benefits you brought. And I think that Uganda needs to think about that.
Good. Long one, but we will follow up on some of those issues, and I want us to pick some of them from the speech and going forward how they can help, I must say, practically to change the lives or livelihoods. Councillor Sarah, I'm more concerned about whether or not whatever has been said today is something that you believe or someone out there believes will be implemented. What is your take, given your experience of the last even 5 years, if you like, or even 10 years of NRM, going forward? Andrew says the president has entered, or NRM has entered, a period of inertia. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. You know, I was listening to Professor Ramathan. We have two professors that have worked on the manifesto. And
the brilliant brains, really.
Of course. These are the top brains that we have as a nation. And drawing from the president's speech, the key issues he raised. You know, Rama was at pain explaining how we've been addressing symptoms and how we need to go to the real issues. And what ran in my mind was, you know, if a leadership can address symptoms for 35 years, and drawing from what Andrew has said, and these are natural factors, really. If you look at Uganda's demographics as released by Uganda Bureau of Statistics, our decision making is dominated by 1.6% of our population, 70 to 80 years and above. They are 1.6% of Ugandans. And you can't take away the natural factors really when it comes to losing energy. And that is a matter of fact. But going back to the speech, the 4 issues that the president raised, patriotism, socio-economic transformation, markets, and democracy, they are part of the 10 points program. They are just written differently. Democracy was number 1 on the 10 points program.
Sure.
Eliminating sectarianism is number 3. Social services and the rest, which is socio-economic transformation, was number 6. And Pan-Africanism with regional integration was number 9 of the 10 points program. So what new thing is he telling Ugandans? How has he delivered on those 10 points program that he packaged as fundamental change? And when you go back to the 1986 speech, the president said, I don't think this is a mere change of guards. I think it is fundamental change. So maybe he was just thinking, and people who took his thoughts seriously maybe were in the wrong. Because if the fundamental change he promised with the 10 points program are still the issues that he's calling key, that need a focus after 35 years. And then people say this is now real business. So what have they been doing for 35 years? I think we need a bit of accountability or honesty on that journey. And we don't just jump speeches and making slogans and give false hope to Ugandans. Going on the 2 issues of regional integration and then the lectures, people who give lectures on democracy. Honorable KAMUNTU, you are the custodian of our constitution as Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Democracy has 5 key tenets, and the participatory or elective bit of it is just one of them. You need to look at rule of law, you need to look at aspects of human rights, you need to look at the welfare of the people. So having so many people elected is not a demonstration of democracy alone. You must look at how, first of all, these people are elected. Like Article 1 says, power belongs to the people. But when you dig deep into that article, beyond the elections that are highly contested in this country and which fall short of the anticipated elections as per the Constitution, beyond participating in choosing a vote, how does this power belong to the people? When you come to judiciary, the arms of government, judicial power belongs to the people, elective power belongs to the people. Where are the people in that power? What is the welfare of a citizen in this country after 35 years of President Museveni's existence in power? And I think it would be misleading really to celebrate the democracy because you elect from LC 1, LC 5, every 5 years you have a huge parliament. Now we have the 3rd largest parliament in the world with our small economy. So we need to look at these issues and the challenges of the day, Charles, as I conclude. The challenges of the day that should be a major focus. We have a crisis of the public debt, corruption, unemployment, poverty, human rights violations. Because it's important to underscore the fact that as you took oath at Kororo and the whole grammar that went with the swearing in ceremony, some Ugandans have sanctions on their heads for election violence, for violating the rights of citizens. And last night, many people did not even sleep in their homes. People were beaten. Is this the democracy that we celebrate and we say nobody should talk to us about?
Okay. Honorable KATUNTU, the issues have grown and grown as they are, we will try as much as possible to limit within the main ones. And Sarah starts us on a different angle altogether, that this is just sloganeering, that this is actually nothing new, that these are picks from the 10 points program. You have been in parliament for some time, you have represented the people, you see the welfare situation of the people, and you want something better in the next 5 years, certainly. Do you think that the speech by President Museveni, the new president, is worth relying on, that yes, this is really no joke, there is going to be work?
Thanks very much. I was listening to my brothers, Ramathan here, and my uncle, Professor KAMUNTU, who by any standard, they are very, very good economists. They have taught many young people economics at university. And Andrew Muenda's credentials are also known. But I just see a general lecture, economics lecture. This, with all the theories that come with economics. Oh, we can do this, we can do this. Let me tell you, if you're an incumbent, the first thing, people like us don't look at your manifesto. They're like the two speeches. When you look at what we call the budget speech, it is a projection about the future, which you would think is a manifesto. But then you would, if you're an incumbent, you also look at the state of the nation, your performance of the previous term. So whatever Professor KAMUNTU and my brother Ramathan is talking about should be just juxtaposed to the performance in the last term. You need the best to say, you see, if we are going to create more jobs, this term, with these resources, we managed to create these jobs. So if we can, these are the challenges which couldn't make us perform better. But if we plug them, then we are going to even create more jobs. Then somebody would be listening. Somebody will be listening. But it's not about theories. I'll give you an example. For the last 30 years, we've had so many affirmative action processes of Entandikwa, Plan for Modernization of Agriculture, Kulembeka, Youth Livelihood, Nagemyoga,
Women Fund.
And I just want to see what has been their performance. And why are we abandoning some of them to go now to the parish model Professor KAMUNTU and my brother Ramathan is talking about? We need the explanation. Then you can move along with everybody. But to come and say all of a sudden we now have another parish model. Research has been done and so on. We don't know those pieces of research. We haven't seen them. We can't even debate them. We have abandoned one. For example, is a myoga a 12-year-old product?
No.
No. And even money which we had already identified for a myoga and other programs, we've just cut it because we are more or less using the same amount of money and reallocated it now to another program. The biggest challenge, and Professor KAMUNTU knows this, is duplication of programs. And the management of those programs means we are going to spend more money in their administration. Two, we've been having a lot of public resource hemorrhage. And it's one of the impediments, corruption. It's one of the, where is it that this time we are going to be working different from the way we've been working? I think there is a big problem there. Now let us look at the president, and Professor KAMUNTU makes this point, I had it in mind. The president had 3 audiences. The first audience was us, industrialization, commercialization of agriculture. Commercialization of agriculture, let us look at the real issues. For example, land reforms, the land tenure system. What are these programs which are on the table for the land tenure system? Because you see, with the sort of land fragmentations and so on, you can't increase land productivity. It's not possible. And we are having a crisis, Charles, if you don't know. The land is not inelastic. So the land is inelastic. Yeah, it's not to grow. The population is growing. What is it that we are doing to feed this population on the same land? In the next 20 years or so, the population maybe would have doubled. So these are the real issues to be addressed, and I expected a real speech where I can live and say, oh, I think on this and on this, there's progress, and the challenges have been properly identified. The president was very combative, really. He was in that mood, and it is understandable. If now we go through, we forget about economics and we talk politics. You know what? The message to his brothers and sisters, heads of government and heads of state and government and other delegations, was if we don't unite, we would be in trouble. And he sends a message to the international community that actually even this Gaddafi thing, we could have handled it differently. You could hit us with missiles from all over the place, but it's possible you would not have won a man-to-man war and so on. Why? Put that message in context, because that international community seems to be uneasy with the president over what went on in this country during the elections. And the actions they have taken, I think he's reading further. And I don't know whether my colleagues had realized it. He's reading further than many of people. Now look here, this sort of trend is really going a little bit far, and it's possible you could even have other repercussions. So he's rallying his colleagues, his brother heads of state. So let us be ready for this. An attack on one is an attack on all of us. And I think that message, to them, it came out clearly. To whether his brothers also saw it that way, that's another question. We'll see whether they agreed with him. And that would be a matter for the future. About things, I'm sure it was in their manifesto, services, ICT. I mean, today, if you're not talking about ICT and services, what economics are you talking about? Because most of these younger people and so on have to be employed in services. I mean, it's purely basic economics. Your students, I'm sure, know this, Ramathan. Yeah? Your students, the first year economics students, they know it. But why is it that we've not been succeeding? Because all these young men and women Andrew is talking about, we are getting from the villages, the urban migration. You free the land for purposes of commercial agriculture, and you bring them here, educate them, and they engaged in services and so on. That's the only way to develop a country. And this is basic economics. What has been the problem?
You see, the problem, I should tell you, KATUNTU, is you need to look at the structure of power. You see, an economy is shaped by the structure of power and politics. Who are the main influences on economic policy making in Uganda? I tell you, it is multinational capital, using institutions like the World Bank and the IMF and these other bilateral donors. They have a lot of significant influence on government policy. And two, they have in a significant way...
Some of them sit in the Bank of Uganda, yes, and Minister of Finance.
And two, this is perhaps for me the biggest thing, is that they have greatly influenced the intellectual class in Uganda, whether it is in civil society, in the government bureaucracy, in academia. The ideas we have in our minds about competitiveness, about practically every single thing, about procurement, about good tax policy, every single thing is shaped by multinational capital, because we have gone to Stanford and Harvard, we have gone to Cambridge and Oxford, we have gone and done internships in these countries. The ideas we have are ideas that are not appropriate for our development. Yes. So whether you look at the level of ideology and ideas, and you look at the level of the most powerful influences on government policy, they are not ideas for our national development. That is why it is difficult for Uganda government to design policies that are appropriate for its own development, because both the ideological and intellectual influences that inform policy, but also the interests that inform policy. Okay, let me give you an example.
Can I ask that you let it be like a kind of question to Professor next to you, so that he needs to respond to that immediately. It's an important thing.
Let me give you an example, Professor, like the road construction sector. I have never seen this. Uganda in the next, I think, 10 years is going to invest about 40 billion in infrastructure, whether it's oil infrastructure, whether it's transport infrastructure, whatever it is, about 40 billion.
$40 billion?
Yes, $40 billion.
Okay.
Because
I thought you were saying 40 billion.
The oil production facilities, alone, plus the refinery and pipeline are going to take anything between 18 to 22 billion. Then you add railways, dams, transmission lines, roads, all this. It's about 40 billion.
That's about 120 trillion.
Now, that is the size of Uganda's GDP today.
Yeah.
But I can tell you there are no Ugandan construction companies going to be doing these things. They're going to be done by foreigners. Why do you think you cannot develop Ugandan construction companies? At the level of ideas, we think Ugandans are incompetent. Let me tell you, if you begin a Ugandan company today, it cannot outcompete the Chinese, whether at price or quality. But if you protect it and discipline it, in the next 10 years, it can grow and become competitive. Okay. So at the level of ideas, we will not allow those companies to grow. 2, at the level of general practice, who are the most influential Ugandans on policy? There are those guys who have been commission agents, what they call the compradors, representing foreign construction companies who give them fat commissions. They get deals for roads, then they contribute to the president's campaign, they contribute to Muenda's campaign, they contribute to KATUNTU's campaign, so that they are the most powerful people, these commission agents. But for them, they're not interested in local companies. They're interested in foreign companies because they're representatives of foreign capital. Okay. So at that level, in that practical level, it's difficult to develop a national policy for the development of local construction companies. So you depend on Chinese to do your roads, but the Chinese, the Americans, the Germans, the Koreans, everyone has developed building their own infrastructure. Uganda plans to develop having others build its infrastructure. I find that strange.
Professor, respond to that and some of the other emerging issues as well. But let's try to be fast so that we can, a lot of issues to discuss.
2 things which should be really clarified. The first one is, there is no time a country will say, we have developed, therefore we can fold our arms and the thing will take care of themselves. It's an economic principle. Every time you satisfy a need, a new need emerges. So when we want to respond to Sarah's question and Muenda's question, you need to begin from 1986 to now. Let the facts speak for themselves. What was the size of the economy? What was the per capita income? What was the extension of electricity? What was it for water? What was the literacy rate? What was the mortality rate? Then from that basis, you can say, yes, you can't say nothing has changed. The way Sarah you're arguing. It can't be like nothing has. This is a process. It is an ongoing process.
Maybe Professor, you misunderstood her. I thought she was saying we could have done better. Not that nothing has changed.
Because
nobody can ever
value
say
for money and time.
Nobody can ever say that nothing has changed.
Performance over time.
At least at our level, our debate should be different.
Maybe Professor,
no.
Just a minute,
No,
sorry.
wait.
Let me try to focus the discussion. My understanding of Sarah's argument is this, and she can correct me, align the focus, that she's saying in 35 years, you have done so much, but it is not enough for 35 years. Maybe you can challenge her and say, how much did you want us to do? That in 35 years, she also referred to the amount of huge debt that you have today on your hands as government.
Maybe I can add make it simpler for then Professor comes.
Clearer.
Professor, I did analyze the 4 key issues the president raised, including maybe 5 and 6 Africa integration and then the international community. If we were at score these issues, 4 of them were in the 10 points program.
Yeah,
no, let me say my question, okay, so that you can respond. If you were at score, for example, democracy, would you say that you are 60%? Where are we? That's my kind of question.
And that's what I was putting to you.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's nothing done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because KATUNTU is asking a counterfactual question. What would it have been? Which was it?
Yes.
It's very difficult.
What are the indicators and where are we in terms of performance
me,
and where you need to go?
What it would have been, what would it have been? It wasn't.
Maybe,
How
maybe
can I answer that question?
let me now pick some of the issues that are salient. Professor, let me now help pick out. Let me help pick out some of the issues that we need our people to listen to or to follow you on. One, talk about the issue of corruption. In the next 5 years, what are you putting in place? What are you going to put in place to ensure that the runaway corruption that we are now talking about, including the president has admitted that there is huge corruption. Last week, the Minister of Finance told a parliamentary committee that I have thieves around me. So it is clear. What do you think you are going to put in place to ensure that this time fighting corruption is serious business, not just sloganeering?
In the president's speech today, and I quote, "What is needed now is to expunge the corruption of the use of money that has been creeping in, brought in by the opportunistic careerists looking for jobs and not service." So the president is mindful of this cancer, and he is not shy about it. But Charles, you should also know.
And he also provides the solution, actually.
Yes.
He says it, which is in the manifesto, the e-government.
The e-government?
Yes.
I'm going to come to you after Professor Gobi to explain how it will work, because for me what I need, the president's speech is like a constitution. I look at the president's speech at an inauguration as a manifesto, a framework, but a structure. But the doing is what we need you to tell the people right
Charles,
now.
you know, I just wanted to context the discussion, because otherwise we will not have concrete way forward.
Yeah.
If you accept that 1986, because this is, you want a baseline, you look at peace, security, and stability of the country at that time, and you want to compare what it is today, you look at the size of the economy then, and you want to see what it is today. You look at the per capita income. These are statistics, variables which you use. What it was then, what it is now. You look at the paved roads. What it was and what it is. You look at water extension. What it was. You look at the literacy rate. What it was, what it is. Then you can say, these are ongoing. They are not going to stop. You will not say we have achieved them, because economic growth is going to be continually
incremental.
Yes. And you can say, yes, surely. And that comes to Muenda's point. Muenda's point is, if you get old, you are slow in decision making. It reminds me of English proverb. The new brooms might sweep better, but the old one knows all the codes. Yes. There is experience, there is knowledge, there is wisdom that comes with this experience that you get. If you are Christian, I would refer you to the book of Job, chapter 12, verse 12.
Chapter what?
Chapter 12, verse 12. I would refer the old man of the clan, that being old doesn't necessarily mean you are slow. No, you are only reflective, and you make better decisions. It is the quality of decision you make. Even these points you are raising.
It says, to God belong wisdom and power. Counsel and understanding are his. What he tears down cannot be rebuilt. The money in prisons cannot be released. If he holds...
No. Job.
Yes.
Chapter 12, verse 12.
Yes.
Read it. Just only one verse.
It talks about wisdom.
Yes.
Found among the aged.
Among the aged.
Yes.
Yes. That's the wisdom you have. That's why they call you the old man of the clan. It is the wisdom. But anyway, to focus the discussion, I'm saying over time, there is structural transformation taking place. You can see the contribution of each of these sectors to GDP. You can see a shift from low value sectors to higher value sectors. You can see all development indicators without exception being positive. So you can now conclude, yes, a counterfactual question, you could have done better, but show it how you could have done better.
Let me show you.
Yes.
And, I'm going to talk about the portfolio you are holding. Justice and Constitutional Affairs.
Oh, yes, I should have answered her question.
Yeah, because yes, I just wanted to, to be focused.
I should have.
We don't want general discussions, Professor. Just look at the quality.
To behave like this.
No, he was asking.
It's okay. I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
He just is interjecting on a question on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
For example, if you have got a more efficient administration of justice system in this country, you will not be having the backlog you're having today. And you know how much it can even affect the economy. When you take years to resolve economic disputes.
I know it.
Yes. So it's not something which you are talking about as a general discussion. It's real.
Okay, let's go for a break.
But before we take a break, I want to ask Professor.
Yeah.
You work in the government. Do you not notice the fact that increasing the system of policy making, especially implementation of government decisions, has slowed down, almost ground to a halt?
Okay, Andrew, keep that question. I'm going to emphasize it to Professor in the next slot. But let's take a break right now. I have GGOOBI waiting on the wings, but that question is an important question. The slow progress on implementation or making of government programs. Let's take a break now and we come back in a bit.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
You first come in. Well, welcome back to the show, and getting interesting behind the headlines and behind the screen, actually. But this is behind the headlines, and this May the 12th, 2021, and we are looking at the topic projection into the next 5 years of NRM, and discussing that, we have the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Most importantly, he was the chairman of the Manifesto Committee of the NRM, and the Manifesto implementation starts tonight. You remember those budget readings of the days when they would say from midnight tonight. Yes. So from midnight tonight, the manifesto work begins of the NRM.
And those were Professor Kamuntu's budgets.
Those were his budgets. So we have Professor EPHRAHIM KAMUNTU in the studio. We have RAMATHAN GGOOBI, we have Sarah BIREETE, yes. We have Andrew Muenda, and we have Honorable ABDU KATUNTU. I want to bring in GGOOBI, and then Professor, keep the question of Andrew. It's still pending, but GGOOBI needs to come in.
Let me first... before you ask me more.
Yes, there are already enough on the table. Please, I will concede.
Some clarifications. Number one, I will start with the
KATUNTU's question.
My good friend, Honorable KATUNTU. You know, KATUNTU talked of the need for giving accountability.
Yes.
In terms of performance in the last term before you bring the new things. Of course, I'm not the candidate, but or the president who was being sworn in. But I thought the president has really spent a lot of time giving the accountability, or in terms of performance of his government, not even within the last term, but since 1986. You know, this is a president who when it comes to accountability, has a very long span of time to do that. And in the manifesto, which this time the NRM is going to implement, actually, one of the key strengths of it is that it provided a context in which Uganda has become what it is now. The accountability which has been given is not even within the period of NRA, but from the day Uganda was formed up to today. When Honorable KATUNTU was speaking, I got a feeling that he has never looked at this manifesto. That's why it's a bulk document, actually. But there is an abridged version, which I would interest Honorable KATUNTU to look at. It has a lot of those things that he would want to hear, and I'm sure Ugandans also listened to some of these facts, and it's the reason why they voted the one who was leading that process. But now, going away from that...
You think the Ugandans who voted based on manifestos?
Oh yeah, partly. When you don't explain what you have done, especially when you're incumbent.
Were we not told in 2016, for example, that if Go Forward manifesto was perhaps the best?
Who was saying that? The voters are the ones who say, who mark manifestos.
Did that match his votes?
I'm saying it is voters who mark manifestos. It's not Charles and some people sitting in a room to determine which manifesto is better.
And I'm hearing from a researcher.
Oh, yeah, from a researcher. Voters are the ones who decide that. Yeah. Now, number two, I want to respond to Andrew, who talked of obsession with integration. And Andrew brought in a very interesting aspect of the population which the president is obsessed with, large populations. And I agree with him. But you know, the president, where he has left Andrew is the fact that he's talking of integration in the global economy. And Andrew, I want you to show me a country which has transformed all those countries you are mentioning without getting the economies integrated in the global economy. I'll give you some facts and figures on tradability in the world today. Tradability means the extent to which your GDP is exported. You will find that Uganda today is exporting an average of 17% of its GDP. The countries we are mentioning as having small economies, especially the Scandinavians on average, they are exporting 58% of GDP. And in particular, one country you mentioned, Luxembourg. I want you to go and look at it. You can even Google. Luxembourg exports 208% of its GDP. And that's why you see it is a rich country. You cannot transform a country by relying on non-tradable economy. Uganda's biggest problem today is people producing to sell to their neighbors. You know, one household sells potatoes to another household. You are sharing poverty. It's just sharing what 10,000 shillings rotating around you in a week. Uganda and Africa must get integrated in the global economy. But it is a process. And that process starts with integration within regional economies. Make sure that as Africa, we must therefore not overemphasize the need for us to get our economies integrated. Let us trade, first of all, together. Then after that, we build the capacity to trade with the rest of the world. That's what the message was, and that's the message in the manifesto of 21-26. Lastly, on the issue of implementation, I think this is the biggest point we can make on this program today. NRM, NRA has written very good papers over the years. The challenge has always been the quality of implementation. And I can, in this way, call myself an authority a bit, because I'm among the few Ugandans who have done research on this particular one. Why are we failing on implementation? Our publication was done in December 2019. From paper to practice, implementation failure in Uganda. Why are we failing to do the things that we put on paper that we are going to do? And we found, number one, and where the panel has been quite right, and Professor, this is something you must take in government seriously, is the weak leadership within the MDAs in terms of decision making. The NRM government is very slow in taking very simple decisions. And
is that
I talked about
the
it.
Inertia that Andrew is saying?
I talked about it even recently, that you find a commissioner in a ministry is the critical person because the head of department who initiates policy and so on. A commissioner is not taking a decision. He's referring it to the director. The director does not take the decision. He's referring it to the PS. The PS is not comfortable taking a decision. He's consulting the minister. The minister is not taking the decision. He's consulting cabinet. Cabinet is not taking a decision. They are consulting the president. The president does not take the decision. He's consulting the people. So you find in the process, there is very, silly delays, I can even put it that way, of critical things which would kickstart the processes of transforming this country. It is something which must be addressed. Number two, the corruption issue. Not glossing over it. The good thing the president has considered that it is among the most problematic factors in the government today. To deal with it, actually we discussed it at length in the Manifesto committee, and we took to the president and said, sir, let us discuss the issue of corruption. And it was agreed that beginning with this term, there should be minimum human contact in doing work of government. We must ensure that we implement e-government and e-procurement in particular. We must ensure that we deal with the corruption of need as well, because we dichotomize the corruption into two. There is corruption of greed, which we tend to focus on a lot in Uganda, people stealing to go, you know, find someone is already paid a salary, and not a very bad salary. No. He's working in a big agency, but still they go and connive with the commission agents, and they make money off projects of government. That one should be dealt with the way Ugandans are crying, why don't we see big fish going to Luzira? That's one. But there is corruption of need also. We talked of corruption of need where, because of very poor pay to public servants, especially in areas like police, in areas like teachers, medical workers, and so on, there is need to restructure and also reform the pay. And those are aspects which were agreed on, and they are well enshrined in the manifesto. Now the issue will be on the implementation.
How do you think you're going to deal with that when you are opposing an idea for discussing minimum wage?
Minimum wage is not the solution.
No. Wouldn't it help in any way?
No, what I'm saying, don't bring another, what we call distortions in economics, to solve a distortion. You're actually multiplying the distortion. Minimum wage sounds good to common sense, but it's bad economics. In a poor economy like Uganda, that is still struggling with creating basic jobs. South Africa did it. If you want to learn how minimum wage distorts an economy, go to South Africa. It's a rich now economy, but it cannot employ its citizens. And that's why you see in South Africa, there is that thing which foreigners call xenophobia. But it is actually bad economics happening, because companies are not allowed to employ South Africans below a certain age. But those companies can employ other people. So Nigerians, Ugandans get employed, and the South Africans are very angry with them.
Okay.
I have a question for Professor.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And my question is, how does the manifesto relate to the National Development Plan 3 and the budget, the incoming budget for the first year of this government?
Yes.
Let me expand on the question.
Okay.
If you go to NDP 3, the strategic drivers are agriculture, tourism, and ICT. I'm sure these are reflected in the manifesto. Yeah. But the challenge of failure to implement national development plans in this country has been a disconnect with the budget. So how does the manifesto relate with NDP 3 and the budget for the first year of this government?
Let me answer. Those three documents, actually, for the first time, they are aligned.
That's true. For the first time.
Fully aligned for the first time.
Okay. With the budget indicators.
Very well. The manifesto.
question is assuming Bobi Wine had won.
No. Don't take
that.
Don't
go there.
Please let Rama answer. Because I'm looking at the budget indicators and the new taxes.
Yeah.
Now,
do they speak to the NDP 3 priorities?
Do they speak the same language?
Yeah, let me come. First with the manifesto and the NDP 3. Actually, the secretariat for the manifesto was NPA, National Planning Authority.
Yeah.
Why? It was deliberately done by the leaders to ensure that the manifesto is aligned to the NDP, because it's the NDP which ultimately has to be implemented. Now, the NDP is a program-based, and this issue of, first of all, the implementation we are discussing, now it was given a full program in the NDP, the plan implementation. It's the program. And there, they made a very good diagnosis on why we are not implementing. For example, the disconnect in the government in terms of uncoordinated troop movement. So many MDAs and so on. That's where now they encourage government that before you do anything, first coordinate government. Make sure that agencies are rationalized, the ministries are rationalized, the office of the Prime Minister is relieved of implementation and concentrate on coordinating government so that government can deliver. And then these are the issues we are talking about. Now, when it comes to the budget, the first budget to implement the NDP 3 is this one. First of all, it's the first budget which is moving away from sectors to programs.
Yes.
And two, it is the first budget where you find that the programs we are talking about are enshrined along with the NDP pillars, which had been indicated. And as the professor was telling you, the main program in it is agro-industrialization. And then these are the
8% of budget allocation.
What I'm telling you is, for the first time, agro-industrialization, when you look at the amount of money being given to it, is larger than what it has been in the past. Of course, it's not the best, but there is improvement.
But another thing, by the way, to help you to Sarah, is that you see, to support agro-industrialization, money you put in roads, money you put in electricity, money you put in education, skilling and health, all that is part of the support system to agro-industrialization. So when you look at the budget line just for agro-industrialization, you are ignoring there's so many factors that influence agro-industrialization, like electricity, like roads, like skills, where money has been put for people to be trained.
I partly don't agree with that. Of course, when you are allocating budget, in budget allocation efficiency, they say that each vote, in terms of its direct impact on what it's going to do, it has to be analyzed in terms of its multiplier effect. When you are spending $1 in agro-industry, the return on that dollar cannot be the same when you are spending it on roads for agriculture. There is that pass-through effect, but it has to be measured. So Sarah's point is, if agro-industry is the main program for the NDP3, yes, why is it not the one which has the most amount of money, yes, the biggest amount of money? And I'm saying there that I'm with you. That's the conversations we've been having. Okay. But the point is, and there is improvement now.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that money, there is this belief that money is a missing ingredient in many of the areas which government would want to improve. It's not true. Yeah, in fact,
but money is very important.
Please let me explain this. You may find that in agro-industrialization, the biggest constraint is not capital. It could be the cost of electricity, it could be access to roads, it could be skills of the population, so that even if you pump their money, you can't get that return. That is why you cannot say that simply because you have said the most important thing to drive Uganda's growth over the next so many years is agro-industrialization, then it should have the highest budget. What if the country is facing security risks? But agro-industrialization has, hold on a second, agro-industrialization has to take place within a secure political environment. Yeah. And for you to create that secure political environment, so that agro-industrialization can take place may require a huge budget for security. So if you are a country like Uganda and you live in a very dangerous neighborhood, Congo has a collapsed or absentee state in the east, South Sudan is a collapsed state, and you have all these security risks, it's very important for you to put in place security in order for you to be able to have your agro-industrialization work. Yeah. I am not obsessed with the budget line of how much money you have given something, because money many times is not the missing ingredient. This continent has received massive transfers of money to solve problems that don't exist, yet the problems that we have may not that we need foreign aid in form of money or foreign or ideas. It could need something else. But I want to come and talk.
You have a very big point, but don't discount
yes.
money.
For example,
I'm not discounting it. I'm simply saying it's not the
All
only thing.
factors.
But let me come to the issue of integration.
For example, are we saying, for example, that the solution, perhaps the solution to the rioters in the towns may be actually improving livelihood and not buying tear gas?
No, I don't believe.
Is
But
that
first
what
of
we
all,
are saying?
let me put to you a chance like this. There is a belief. It's strong in the president's mind. It's strong in most people's minds that if you create jobs and improve economic performance, you will be able to cool down the anger,
rioters, the anger
of the
frustration.
people, of the young people. That is misleading. In fact, economic development and improved incomes gives Uganda a higher risk of political explosion than economic stagnation.
The
I'll give
demand
you,
is also increased.
Hmm?
The demand is increased. For
You see,
example,
as,
if somebody has got a job and he has a small job and somehow he affords a small little car, now he gets a better pay and so on, he will start demanding a bigger car. Small little things, even a phone. He's on a small phone, whatever it is, and once the income is increased and better, he wants a bigger phone and so on. So that does not necessarily mean that when the economy improves, people
that when people's well-being, I will give an example.
They demand more.
South Korea is the
That's
best.
natural.
South Korea is the best example. From 1961 to 1990, that country went through a blitzkrieg, a high speed of economic transformation. But it was also engulfed with the biggest student protests, youth protests, and labor militancy. Why? Because as people's incomes increase, their exposure increases, their education increases, their aspirations also grow bigger. Many times aspirations grow faster than the rate of economic growth in economic opportunities. So the mismatch between aspirations and economic opportunities leads to social frustration reflected in the massive protests. But I wanted
there is a hand to your left, Andrew.
Yes, but I just wanted to come and talk about integration, because we should understand what integration President Museveni is talking about and what GGOOBI was talking about.
Can you let Professor answer
please
your...
let me finish this idea.
Andrew, just a minute.
We will
please
die.
allow Professor respond to the question you had raised, and then we touch on integration as a main issue.
Yes, Charles, I want to respond briefly to GGOOBI. It is true, no country in the world, except the United States, by the way, I should tell you, up to
the United States is not a country.
Yes. No country can develop
Why do you say
without international trade.
Yes. Without international trade.
You cannot grow without international trade. But that is
amalgamation of states trading with each other.
It's a federation.
So the point I am making with GGOOBI.
So trade with each other.
That's
The
what
north
I'm
and
saying.
the south, the east and the west in Uganda.
Guys, I want to come to this point.
Uganda is a bigger state.
The kind of economic integration the president is talking about
Yes.
is where Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Congo, whatever countries form a regional customs union.
Yes.
You get it?
Which exists.
You don't need a customs union to be economically integrated in the world. If you look at whether it is Hong Kong or Singapore, you don't need to. You can't, let me tell you, the European Union was created in 1947. The European countries that had industrialized without actually, they had economically integrated without a political and economic structure in the form of a customs union. It never existed. The first customs union in Europe was created after they were industrialized.
I hope you have read about the history of mercantilism.
Yes, but mercantilism, this is what I'm saying. You can trade, Uganda right now trades with Kenya. Uganda right now rather trades with China.
Feasible.
Yeah, no, Uganda trades with China heavily. But we do not have an a customs union with China. Yes. So we don't need a customs union. In fact, I should tell you there are risks to a customs union. Why have customs unions failed in poor countries but succeeded in rich countries? Ramathan here is a professor of economics. He should read an economist called Tony Venables, who studied economic integration in rich and poor countries. And this is what he found. He found that the benefits of economic integration always go to the country closest to the global mean in terms of income, the global average in income. When you integrate rich countries, you get Britain, France, Germany, and bring in poor countries like Greece and Spain. What happens? Because the other ones are richer and the labor costs are very high, factories shift from the rich countries to the poorer ones.
There is
Cheaper
so it allows the weaker countries in a rich union to catch up. When you bring it to poor countries, remember the benefits to go to the country nearest to the global mean. So you bring it to East Africa, Kenya is much more advanced. When you create a customs union, Kenya, which would have better skills, better infrastructure, better facilities, most investors will go there. So you find that countries like Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, and Uganda will be losing out. So that economic integration will help only those who are closest to the global mean. I don't want to go into the complexity of the model that he developed.
Okay.
And therefore, I also think that the East African community collapsed partly because of that.
Now that we have allowed him to misinform, you must allow me.
But how, Professor needs to come in.
Let Professor first respond.
Come in, yeah.
Professor, respond to, you had a number of questions, but the one that stood out, one was the slow progress of government in handling its projects. I need you to start on that.
And the tenets of democracy.
Yeah, no, I have 3 areas which I really wanted to put square on the table. The first one is integration. Let me put it on the table, because integration that we are talking about in the African context, apart from economics, which Ram you have explained quite well, there is strategic security in the African context that had we integrated, perhaps the genocide in Rwanda would not have happened. That is strategic security of the African countries. Second, there is irrational borders, which was imposed by Berlin Conference, where these guys drew lines. And the story of Aworis has always been quoted, that you have a Muenda Awori, vice president in Kenya, you have an Awori in Uganda contesting their president.
Minister in Uganda.
Purely because of irrational borders, which really must be rationalized. You cannot continue to be named by the Berlin Conference that tagged you are Ugandan, the other one is a Kenyan, regardless of the social cohesion in the area. So apart from economics, these 3, you have strategic security, you have irrational borders which must be removed. Then we come to your question of implementation. It is true. Implementation capacity of most government programs is a major issue we have discussed at various levels. Nobody can deny that indeed the need for accelerating implementation of programs is very critical to achieving SARA. Yes, it is a 10-point program, self-sustaining growth. It is. But self-sustaining growth is just like a plane taxiing on runway. You must tax until you reach that takeoff. And that takeoff, it takes time. It's not an event that happens once and you take off. And we are saying we have been taxing, and let me argue that if it was not COVID, I'm sure by now we will have achieved the takeoff stage in the economic transformation of this country. So,
and then the issue of
yeah. No, I can show you, Sarah, I can show you numbers.
Professor, there was also the question of duplication of projects that Honorable ABDU KATUNTU raised, but also he also raised the issue of elections are not a democracy. Does not
yes.
The tenets.
No, that's true.
Tenets of democracy.
Let me agree. Democracy has a variety of dimensions. In the first place, it is a value. It is not just mechanistic. How people respect the human rights, how people respect the rule of law, how society can be lawful. And being lawful, society starts from a family to a school, to all these institutions. You must be like cultured to respect, and that is it's a value system. It is a value inculcation, which is going to be a process as well. But clearly, one man, one vote, periodic elections is a very essential element of democracy.
It is essential, but it is not an
not
end in itself.
No, that's why
it is one of them.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Tell us about the others.
I cannot say it is the only one. No, but it is a very essential, like KATUNTU.
You landed in a gang of...
KATUNTU will tell you, the people will choose a government, the system they want. It is a constitutional provision. Power belongs to the people. They will exercise it through their representatives.
Yeah.
Unless you have a method of getting that representative, power belongs to the people doesn't make sense. You would have to go through that periodic election as an element of democracy, in addition to very system of respecting the rights of others.
True.
Yes.
True.
So I submit. But final point.
Thank you so much, Honorable.
No, let me submit one final point on this issue, especially in relation to Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah's a critical point, which is okay, is to know that development or transformation is a process. It is not an event. Yes, we are on the road. And you can say, yes, you can speed up.
We have the timeline. If we are here going
Because
to Mbarara, is it 3 hours? Is it 20 years?
She quotes, you have been here 35 years, you have been 35 years.
The only thing,
have we been doing nothing?
Professor, maybe what
35
the challenge...
years, have we been doing nothing?
No,
you can see transformation.
Professor, the challenge is, and I want to borrow from the wisdom of General Muntu, which he shared here. He said, you left Kabale in 1986, and you're traveling to Malava. And in 2021, you're still in Lukaya. Will you say that
Have you made progress?
you have made progress? Yes, you have moved, but have you really?
No, you just said it, but don't you know we are from Kabale?
But that is, Professor, you may...
But you can see,
Yeah.
this is...
It will turn into the
First sit down and eat the wild animals.
moving to the promised land.
Sometimes
it took
you-
40 years and
No, you see, it's a theoretical example that he's giving you,
yeah.
but he doesn't show you just the question I put to you. All these debates, if you want to reduce it, just take any development indicator and show whether you have made progress on any of them.
Okay.
And that's what I wanted this debate so that you are analytical.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Professor. And let me bring in some messages that are coming from our audiences out there. Someone called Umar Bukenya says, we are tired of corruption, and actually corruption is now on an industrial scale. And then someone called Ben Ekichumurwa says, I hope that Honorable KATUNTU, I don't know whether it is KAMUNTU or KATUNTU, will be in the next cabinet.
They sometimes interchange.
But
I think it is KATUNTU.
But I think this is Honorable KATUNTU from what he has written. And then
Professor KAMUNTU.
And then someone called Tony says, the national debt. Professor, this is, I think, to you. Can the NRM work towards making the national debt zero? And then someone, Noble, says service delivery. He just says that. Then Andy Mobile says, I think the professor should think more of youth employment, as more of us have, as most of us have tried to achieve the education we deserve. Then
who said that employment? Who is the guy?
About employment?
Yes.
is called Andy Mobile.
And the mobile.
Yeah. And then there is Semazi. Semazi is still pessimistic, Professor. Semazi says, I don't think there is anything new NRM is going to change. This is Semazi Samuel. And then Aine Raymond says, but they have a manifesto for the next 5 years. Let them just implement that and all of it. These are as a result of our poll question on what do you think? We asked the question, what do you think NRM should focus on in the next 5 years? That's why he's responding, and he says they have a manifesto, let them implement that, which is fine. Alberto Butt says we need more fight on corruption in the next 5 years. Professor, that's your response to you. People are tired of corruption, and these are mainly young people. So they're saying that the fight on corruption must be strengthened. Omar Worth, Ronald says, nothing much that we expect from NRM, but more economic suffering. And then Achol Daniel says job creation. And then he says the Apache Lirakit Gum Road and health improvement. Someone called this person, there is, let me see, there are more questions that have come. Someone without a name says, Charles, if patriotism is love for one's country, how can these leaders in government make us citizens love our country? And then someone called Geoffrey. Geoffrey says, some people sit on dusty floor in makeshift structures. Nurse to patient ratio is very high with no drugs. Honorable Minister, after 40 years, it is not yet after 40 years, maybe you wanted to say after 35 years, is that development? That's what he's asking. And then someone called Lucas from Kasese says, Charles, can Professor Kamuntu state for us the difference between the 10 points program, the NRM manifesto, and the presidential speech of today, including the previous ones? Yeah, and those are the questions that have so far come, and but there is another one here. Santos says, John Santos says, Ramathan should be made Minister of Finance. You should clap for that. You don't accept blessings. You should clap. Someone is blessing you.
Wishing you well.
And then, oh, now they are praising the panelists. Someone says, Sarah BIREETE has good ideas. She can do better if appointed Minister of the Youth. Gordon Twesije, I am watching you from Rwampara. And then Godric Patrick from Tororo says, thank you, Sarah, for the brilliant presentation. Women are effectively represented in the debate. And then Ivan from Nairobi says, ICT is the springboard most developed economies have leveraged. It needs more attention than it has received in the past. I'm happy to hear Professor Ramathan mention e-procurement and e-government.
How much money is this?
By the way, has the budget captured it?
How much money?
Has the budget captured the e-commerce through budgeting?
E-government.
digital
Yeah,
transformation.
the details.
Digital transformation is at 0.3%.
0.3% of
Innovation,
44.
technology, and development is 0.8%.
Not percent. Put the
How
money.
much is it? How much is it? That is of 44 trillion.
They don't allocate percentages.
Put
They don't
absolute-
allocate percentage.
They don't allocate money.
Put absolute
How
number.
but-
much money is it?
There is a Tinkasimire says government officials' sense of
174
urgency.
billion.
Let's listen. Let's listen.
nothing.
These are important comments coming from your viewers there. Tinka says government officials' sense of urgency is more on the road than in their workplace. Hence the sirens. I would want NRM to be more serious in service delivery. Professor, that is for you. Then someone called Atamba says a country can build an effective and sufficient internal market, but with the right legislation for industrialization, human resource management, and the country's other usable resources. Japan is a good example. And then someone called, yes, those are the issues that have come so far from the to Muenda and RAMATHAN. What does reduction in electricity tariffs help in economic development? Honorable KATUNTU, in the 10th Parliament, you voted overwhelmingly some years ago to terminate the Omeme concession agreement. Now, President Museveni is agreeing with you. Is it possible that Parliament recommendation, if ignored, can be treated at budget requests by, this is not clear, by suspending budget allocation to ministries that don't implement Parliament's recommendation? I don't know whether you have understood it.
Well, whatever it is,
you will try to frame an answer around it. So all of you now have questions, with the biggest going to Professor KAMUNTU, but there is someone called strategist. He says, thanks for the show. We take the opportunity to congratulate, this person is now doing my work, congratulating the Muslim community, and strategist, thank you so much for that. And then he says, Eid Mubarak. And then can someone called Chankara Bernard says, hello Charles, thanks for your work. I think when we discuss the issue of implementation of government programs, it's important we pay attention to the quality of the implementers and the aspect of accountability. Honorable KAMUNTU, this is very important, because someone the other day asked a question on the parish model. To what extent has government built the capacity of the leaders at the parish level who are going to handle the, whatever, the project at that level? Do they have capacity to account for whatever resources that will be funneled through them? And the person is, this Chankara is saying, in most cases you find that these are the same persons moving from program to program. It goes back again to what Honorable KATUNTU had said, duplication. So Professor, I need you to start responding to some of those issues, because we have many of them, and yet time is not on our side.
No, thank you very much, Charles. Let me begin with Ande Mobile. I think that was his name.
Yes.
Ande Mobile.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, both in the manifesto as well as in the National Development Plan, a number of outstanding challenges are identified. One of them is unemployment for the youth. This is an outstanding problem. And in the manifesto, the point is made to deliver jobs, to create jobs, as a major thrust of the manifesto program. Also in the National Development Plan, this point is made. So I can tell and mobile that this youth challenge of unemployment is being addressed. And I should add, because once it's a kind of becoming a victim of your own success. If you increase universal primary education, universal secondary education, universities, they expand from Makerere to 40 universities. And every year you have 40,000 graduates coming out of universities. And the economy is not expanding fast enough to absorb all of them. You have a problem on your hands. And that's why all these programs right now are geared towards creating jobs for the youth. And I can tell Andy Mobile, take heart. Yes, take heart.
Andrew is laughing at the name.
Andy Mobile, that's what you say.
You are right, Professor. Yes, don't worry about Andrew.
Then the next one is the fight against corruption. This fight is total fight. There is no one who can condone. Yes, Ram, you have specified, which is true. Corruption based on need can be addressed by improving the welfare, the salaries of staff, and that can be addressed. But corruption based on greed, no matter how much, in fact, the more the guy has, the more he wants to cheat. And that must be dealt through a complex, a variety, a package, including e-government, including, Andrew, a very competent press, media, that does investigative journalism and exposes all this. It must involve strengthening anti-corruption institutions. We must do everything to ensure that this corruption, as the President has said, is expunged from our operation. Now, 35 years of progress. Yes, I must mention, every time people are talking about 35 years, these have been 35 years of steady progress. And as I have mentioned to you, every development indicator shows it. Even when you go to the 10-point program, which became 15, still you can see from the beginning to now, a lot of things have changed positively. So I would say the challenge that we have, which we must address, one of them was a big proportion of our households being in subsistence. That's why we come to parish model. Parish model is intended. If you look at it, he said, previously it was 68.9% of Uganda's household. This figure has improved. It is now 39%. You have to ask yourself, where are these? If you are going to ask that, you must go and reach out for each household. And in reaching it out, I just repeat this because it is also spelled out in our manifesto. You reach out, where are these 39% households which are in subsistence, and how can you reach them, and how can you get them out of this subsistence? To do so, house to house, because they are not uniform. A guy, household with 2 acres of land, one has 3 acres of land, another one has 2 acres of land. When you come to each of these houses and you see land side, you list the family, you test the soil, you can advise with extension service. This is the point. With extension service component, you can say your soil, your land size plus the quality of your soil. You can have bananas and you can have coffee as one cash crop and one food crop, but based on scientific information that you have collected. And that's why Honorable KATUNTU's point is well taken, that if you want to build cottage industries, if you want commercialization of agriculture, there is no any other way except this route. And you can use cooperative to bulk the production of so many small ones. You can establish cottage industries based on actual situation. You can look for the markets for the produce of these ones. In so doing, you will definitely lift these households which have held back. You know, Charles, this country could have reached a middle income status if we found a way of reaching these people. And this one is different from the past experiments we have done.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor.
I have a question for the Minister of Agriculture.
Sir,
And
we are answering the question.
No, just parish model briefly.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable.
Sarah.
Yeah, if you look at people, involved in subsistence agriculture, and I think the first, in 1996, among the 3 issues that the president campaigned on was modernization of agriculture. But we have 76%.
Wasn't that actually the theme?
Yes,
of that,
in
campaign?
1996, the first elective term, modernization of agriculture.
Modernization
So, yeah, what is changing again is the language, but statistically, we have about 5% people engaged in agriculture that are employed on a wage basis. Most of them are stuck in the informal kind of economy still. Yeah. And then you have still the majority of Ugandans estimated at 76% stuck in agriculture. And the national census captures details of what you're talking about, who is doing what, and this. And the government you served in before, for Dr. Milton Obote, had the agriculture extension services well going to the people and homesteads. So what new thing are we inventing in the parish model?
This is a scientific approach of gathering accurate information house to house. It's no longer this holistic planning without basic data on each one of them. Let me just elaborate on this one because there has been some experiments. If you go to Andrew's household, you find he has 2 acres. You go to Sarah's household, you find he has 3 acres. You find the quality of soil of this guy can only have coffee. You find yours is too small. They propose poultry, they propose piggery because your size of your land. In other words, it is going to be different from what each one of us has. This has not been tried.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Andrew, way forward now, 5 years, way forward, make a projection in 1 minute.
Well, I think that what is helping Uganda now is that over the last 35 years, many institutions have recovered and consolidated. There are things that can happen not because the central government and cabinet are directly involved. If you look at the National Water and Sewerage Corporation and the expansion of water across the country from 23 towns about 10 years ago to how many towns now? About
it was 23. It was 23.
23 now. They're about 250 towns. If you look at institutions like NSSF and how they are performing, mobilizing workers' savings, even when you look at the say institutions like Umeme, which the president really criticizes, and I think he criticizes it these days out of context, because you know the concession between Umeme and the government of Uganda was signed in a context of in a particular context. It's like today, if Uganda goes on the markets to borrow, it will borrow at around 7%. When Germany goes to borrow, it borrows at 0.4%. Do you think Uganda is being cheated? Uganda's risk profile is very high, and therefore anything it negotiates, it comes with that price tag.
Why don't they accept a modification of it?
Actually, they accepted. The government of Uganda was negotiating with them. At that time, it was supposed to be a rate of return of 20%. They are willing to accept 12 or 10%, whatever it is. Okay. But the agreement, when it was signed at that time, it was the best deal Uganda could get given its risk profile.
The time it was understandable.
Yes, it was understandable.
Because we were desperate.
Now you can revise it. That does not mean that those who negotiated it at that time made a mistake. And I think that's where the president is going wrong. The people who negotiated at that time negotiated in a very particular risk environment. Today, thanks to Umeme, by the way, I should tell you, at that time, government of Uganda actually advertised somebody to take over the concession. All companies in the world refused. 6 companies came here, 2 from Spain, 1 from France, 1 from Britain, 1 from South Africa, and 1 from the USA. They came, did a due diligence, and refused to invest because it was not worth it. So government of Uganda is the one that went and asked CDC, the other 5 left without telling government of Uganda. But CDC wrote a letter saying, we cannot invest in your distribution company, in your distribution concession because of points A, B, C, D. There were 6 points. I'm not going to them. President Yoweri Museveni personally and individually sent a delegation led by the Minister of Finance, Gerald Sendola, sent them to London, go beg them to come and help us. So when they came, they put a lot of terms based on the circumstances that existed. So the concession was signed in that context.
Okay.
So I think that many things will happen in those spheres where institutions have consolidated. But the things
This is in the next 5 years.
yes, but the things that are directly controlled through cabinet and parliament, you are going to see increased gridlock because of squabbles inside parliament, because of the slow decision-making processes within the cabinet, and also because we have admitted President Yoweri Museveni is not growing young. There are things you can do quickly and decisively when you are 40
But
or
if
50.
he brings young people who can make things move, he is not supposed to work alone. He's supposed to work as a team, rather.
You see, when you are a CEO or an executive, you must have a team, and for it to work effectively for the things that you want, you must trust them. I get the sense that the president does not trust most of the people who work with him.
Where do you get that sense?
That's the sense I get. Because
One of them is on your left. He doesn't trust. He doesn't. You think he doesn't trust Professor Kamuntu?
Where do you get that sense?
this is the sense I'm getting, because let me give you an example of the
It's
Kampala
smelling
Ginger.
that one.
Yes, the
Smelling
Kampala
it.
Ginger
It's the
Expressway.
same.
Yeah.
First, he wrote a letter saying the process of procuring a contractor who was also a manager had been advanced and was about to reach the end. He wrote a letter saying, no, I have met some Chinese who have made this counter proposal. What the Chinese were proposing was fraud to him. So, since he writes this letter, so the process is halted. And negotiations now begin to demonstrate to him that, look, this is not the right thing. But even when that is finished, some people go and tell him there has been corruption. He asks IGG, investigate. Now the IGG is investigating. Remember, the IGG will take 6 months or 7 months. When that stops, another one comes up. Anyway, the bottom line of what I'm saying is that, you see, I think those days, which we like so much, one of the things is you could assign a task to, say, Professor Kamuntu, Kategaya, Wapakabla, whoever it is, he trusted that they would do it and do it honestly. I get the sense today that maybe he's not so sure about it. And by his own style, he is a person who wants to think over an issue of a period of time. So because he thinks that there is so much corruption in the government and whoever is handling a particular, let me give an example.
Is he wrong to think that there is so much corruption?
Well, you know my views on this. I think that the biggest
GGOOBI is saying I'm asking the wrong person.
Yes, let me tell you this. Honestly, I am convinced that the problem of Uganda is not corruption per se, quote unquote. That's minor. The biggest problem is the struggles over corruption and the perception of corruption. It has paralyzed the state.
Okay.
Because somebody, that's what I'm telling you. I'll give you an example, another one, this SGR.
Yeah.
People go and tell the president there has been corruption. He launches an investigation. He launches a second one. He launches a third one. Finally, he invites the Chinese and has to negotiate with them. But he's not a technical person, and they have to realign the railway. But when you are aligning the railway where it's going in order to reduce cost, you're reducing the capital investment, increasing what we call operational costs. Let me tell you something about these railways. Yes.
Because we are
You see, the way you build a railway, you can build a railway and invest huge volumes of money initially, so that the running costs are very low. So you ensure that you're going to break through hills and swamps and all this and make a straight line so that it can run. When a railway is going through corners like this, it tends to create a lot of wear and tear, so the maintenance costs become high. So you have to make a decision. Should I do high investment costs, low operational costs, or should I do low initial capital investment and high operational costs? So the original alignment was to deal with that. So the president thinks, no, he begins negotiating. But when he's negotiating with the Chinese, they're also saying, okay, to reduce this cost, we need to pass it here and there. But when you pass it there, you put the corners that will increase future operational costs. Anyway, the point I'm trying to say is I feel like on these major investment infrastructure projects, the president increasingly doesn't believe or trust the people he has put there. The absence of trust creates transaction costs and delays decision making.
Okay, Professor, I hope you'd have no comment on that. Sarah, in 1 minute.
Yeah, I think really what we need to do in the next 5 years, other than the issues we've mentioned, is a particular attention to diversify the economy. The proposal of e-government is exciting, but I think we need to go beyond e-government to look at how to develop the knowledge-based economy. by enhancing competitive capacities for the national economy, pay attention to knowledge, innovation, utilization of these innovations in all sectors, entrepreneurship, scientific and technological as well as social knowledge, and looking at the new role of technology that has capacity to employ a big number of the young people that are really yearning for jobs. But also when it goes to agro-based, industrialization, we need to pay attention, for example, to what are we doing about value addition? Because normally we pay lip service to aspects of value addition, and I don't even know the particular issues in this budget that address the questions of value addition in the agricultural chain to industrialization.
Okay. This one I thought I needed to close, but this one is interesting. Someone from Kasese says, Charles, let the president and government stop or regulate or even completely stop the creation or splitting of new districts in order to control the unnecessary public expenditure and instead provide service delivery to local Ugandans.
Can I respond?
GGOOBI.
I think to me, whatever we are going to be discussing zeroes on one thing. This new government has one major task: to make the economy of Uganda work
For the people.
for the majority of Ugandans, not a small group of people, as it is doing today.
Yeah.
The rest is a detail, which is technical. Part of it has been discussed at length. Another part has yet to be discussed. And in that, we need to take the economy to especially the rural areas of Uganda. There is no economy there. It's concentrated here in the center. We need also to make the economy work to the younger people who are wasting away their lives in the informal areas, which are giving them very little money. And to do that, I think it will require government to do things different from how they have been doing them.
Thank you so much, GGOOBI. Finally, Honorable KATUNTU, way forward this next 5 years.
I'm still grappling with my mind with these people's idea, these economists, that you give people money and they develop.
Whose idea is
You economists. You know, they have taken this country, and the culture of government here to Yambe has just, engulfed our people. They are just waiting for money.
That's economics of you politicians.
Now you are the one writing this project. Oh, it is now parish level. Oh, it is Emyoga. Oh, it is
Parish
what
model
we
is
have
not about
gone
giving people
through
money.
that.
Let me
I
first
can
clarify.
tell you.
No.
Please.
Let me first clarify before you continue.
You run away
You have accused.
from the very issues you create.
No, let me first clarify before you choose wrongly. You politicians, you are the ones who are giving people money. Economists are telling you people need incentives to make money. And now you are reducing the parish model to giving people money. The parish model is about taking the government to the people. Government is in Kampala, and the people are not in Kampala, in your parish.
But
That's
we have
what-
centralization.
So that's where the government should go.
You see,
collect data,
let me tell you.
test soils,
And
provide
let
markets
let him
at
not even choose the politicians. All these projects about giving out money, they are initiated by their papers. All of them. And all those projects that have collapsed is because of these professionals. But once they fail, the politicians take a responsibility. Now, Ramathan is saying wrong professionals. You see, that's where the problem is. And we've gone through this. For these few years I've been in Parliament, as I was telling you the other day. I can tell
Professor
you.
has.
Yes.
You want to give information to KATUNTU?
No,
Yes,
no,
I'll
no.
get it.
I
Professor,
want
I'll
a
always get it.
comment.
So to me, I think our people, we should just create an environment where they can work and make money. Actually, this debate is also in the US currently, because the Biden government has, I think it's around $1.9 trillion. At first, they had a check per person, 600. 600.
No, I mean 900 billion in total.
Yes. Then now they have come up with another check of 1,400.
400.
Yes. And you know, the Republicans, whom I really agree with, but they are saying, no, I think you are making our people lazy, because they imagine there is money, what? Coming. So I think these economists should save this country, and some politicians. And I always sit in the House. On this one, Rama is right. Our people want money here, and you know, people on the floor of the House. Everybody just wants money to go. And you know, that we've given them 400 million shillings, all these ones we've given that money. And you know what happened? Because of our level of socio-economic development, Ramadan, our people have got so many problems that they just get this money and they just share it and sort out needs. They just sort out needs.
Idiosyncratic needs.
Exactly.
Mainly the medical and fees.
Medical fees, even social, even dowry.
No drinking,
even
alcohol.
drinking. So I can tell you, Professor KAMUNTU, that's why sometimes, because you see, he has been in this economy from 1980, I think 79. We should be having some other innovative ways of handling the rural economies, other than saying these guys, with their level of education, their level of income, their peasant thinking, say, okay, we give them money, they will share it.
Okay.
And they'll sort out their problem.
Okay.
And they'll remain in the same state.
Okay.
Charles.
There's one of them asked the question about umeme.
Yes.
That's also another problem. You know, government goes into contractual obligations. And tomorrow we come and take a decision of breaching, abrogating these contracts. I think it's wrong. It sends a terrible message to the people who come to deal with us. But it also causes us legal liabilities. So by the time we come up and say, no, we can't allow this and so on, then it becomes an issue. Let us be always mindful about the contractual obligation we've moved into.
Okay.
You know, Charles,
Yes.
I didn't want us to lose.
But can we renegotiate umeme?
There's no lawyer worth a salt who can draft a contract without a review clause, a termination and review clause. It should always be there.
Yeah.
Such that at some point, I mean, anyway. I don't want to go
First of
to-
all, I should tell you this about Umeme.
Professor wants to. We need to get out.
But you are the one who started the debate
Yes,
again.
the concession is about
Leave
to
him.
end. You get it. It ends in 2025. But this is the issue. Uganda right now needs to invest in the distribution network up to around about $1.4 billion. If you are to send Umeme,
which we don't have.
which you don't have. So since Umeme is a private company, you can send them on the equity market to raise capital and on the debt market. But in either of those markets, no one is going to invest money when you have a concession of only 4 years remaining.
Yeah.
So you need to extend the concession by another, say, 15 years in order to allow them to borrow and all this. So this is a period for Uganda to
But
negotiate.
haven't you also come in and bought, for example, NSSF?
Yes,
Has
yes.
it?
Right now,
So
No,
you
gentlemen,
can't say we're already there.
if you want us to
Just-
discuss
just a quick
umeme,
one, yes.
We're
we
already
will
there.
discuss.
right now, 36% of Umeme is owned by Ugandans.
Yes.
And 55% is owned by East Africans. So it's increasingly becoming a local company. But the most important thing is that right now, Umeme has agreed with the government of Uganda, I think, to reduce the rate of return from 20% to 10%. And let me tell you why government of Uganda worries me. If right now you, Charles, go to buy a government of Uganda 10-year treasury bond, they give you a rate of return, interest rate of 17%.
Yeah.
If you tell me as Umeme, then if you're going to, if I can buy your bond, give me my money, I go and buy your bonds then. Because on your bonds, you're giving me 17%. But you're saying on distributing your electricity, I should take 5%? What are you saying?
Doesn't make business sense. Finally, Professor.
Charles, I wanted us to be focused. The country has a vision. And the vision of this country is transform Uganda's economy to becoming a prosperous and modern state, to becoming a middle-income country. And that's why we are proposing, and I would want to urge members of the panel to support, if you identify what is holding Uganda back from takeoff, you will realize the problem lies in a peasant subsistence economy. Consequently, in the manifesto, as it is in the National Development Plan, commercialization or transforming agriculture from being subsistence to commercial becomes very important. Reason, most of the peasants, most of the moneyless people who have no money are in the agricultural sector. You need to attack it. And we are proposing the parish model, KATUNTU, is an attempt to commercialize agriculture.
Land reform?
Yeah, yes, it is an attempt. House,
are you addressing the land reform?
Yeah, yeah, it will, because that's the whole point. The whole point is,
yeah, it is also
yes,
part
the
of
land
the
is addressed, because by visiting household, getting scientific information on each one of them, then scientifically you will know how to lift this guy out of subsistence.
Out of subsistence.
That's it.
Okay.
Then Charles,
yeah,
every developed country is industrialized country. Tell me which country is developed that is not industrialized. So when we recommend industrialization and manufacturing is historically a way to transform your economy from being poor to becoming middle-income country. And the ultimate is you must move to economic takeoff for an economy to reach that self-sustaining growth. Then, and only then, you can say, yes, how is this? This is the goal. This is the mission. This is the vision that we should focus on.
Thank you very much, Professor. Once again, I want to really appreciate you. It has been an incredible day for you. 2-3 days, and but you accepted to come and join the panel after coming all the way from Entebbe. Thank you so much. We appreciate. Thanks a lot, Andrew Muenda, for finding time and coming to the show.
Day today.
Thank you so much, Sarah BIREETE, and very busy, of course. Thank you, Professor GGOOBI, and thanks a lot, Honorable KATUNTU. I want to say two things. One, from the Behind the Headlines team, congratulations to Honorable KAMUNTU and the NRM, and with your candidate. Thank you for the successful swearing in. Thank you. We congratulate candidate, now President, Yoweri Museveni, for winning another term. We pray and pray that you know, you serve the people, the local ordinary people, change their lives and improve their welfare, as you promised when taking the oath today at Kololo ceremonial grounds. Do that and we will be happy. I liked one message that I think that the young people need to know, and everybody. That message, I think, is agreeable too. Elections have ended. Now, can we get back to work? Can we fight and struggle to work and put food on our table? I think that is where we all must be united. Let's see how, where we disagree, dialogue should be the best option. Otherwise, we destroy our country. Let's do that. Finally, from Behind the Headlines here, happy Idi. To Honorable KATUNTU, RAMATHAN, GGOOBI especially represented here, but to all the Muslims in Uganda and across the world, those who are listening to us.
What about the terrorists?
Muenda.
Are you guys equating Muslims with terrorists?
No, to dressing. They are doing that.
In Farid Zakaria's show this last week, he showed that there are 90% of the terrorist acts that have taken place in America are by white, right-wing Christian groups, not by Muslims.
Thank you so much.
Lord,
and from the production team here, thanks so much. My producers, I have a number of them: Morris, Bills, William, Fred, and all of you. Professor, you want to?
I want to give this copy of Manifesto to Honorable Katuntu.
To Honorable Katuntu.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Yes.
And thanks to all of you out there who watch this show. Thanks for the support and continue watching the show. Good night, a very good morning, and join the Muslim brothers and sisters in celebrating the Eid later today, because it is already Thursday morning. Bye-bye. Good night. God bless you all.
Thank you.
You say.
Thank you.